Welcome, everyone. Today, we're diving into a document that makes a pretty radical claim that history isn't random at all, but is actually a meticulously choreographed ritual. Now, our goal here isn't to prove or disprove what it says, but to really understand the complex and, controversial framework it lays out. So, let's get into it.
Right off the bat, the source material argues that what we perceive as history or politics or just life is really a form of ritual choreography. That one phrase, that single idea, really sets the stage for everything else we're about to unpack.
So, to get our heads around the logic of this codex, we're going to follow its 5 main arguments. We'll start with its core thesis, then look at its claims about bloodlines, how it views reality as a kind of theater, its wild reinterpretation of prophecy, and finally, what it calls the countdown protocol. Okay, so the foundational concept, the big idea that holds this whole thing together is this. Major global events, they're not chaotic, they're not random. The document argues they are meticulously scripted.
And this is the question the document really wants you to wrestle with. It's challenging the way we normally think about history and what's on the news. It's suggesting that under all that apparent chaos, there's actually an intentional order, a script that's being played out right in front of us.
So if events are scripted, you have to ask, who are the actors? Well, this is where the document starts to build its case, by focusing on history and on lineage, claiming both have been deliberately twisted and manipulated over time.
The document just presents this number. No immediate context. Just 460,000. It's a huge, stark figure. And the source uses it to anchor one of its most disturbing claims.
And here's how it connects that number to its central thesis. It takes an official statistic, the number of missing children, and gives it this shocking reinterpretation. It alleges these aren't just random tragedies, but ritual-coded events, part of what it calls a bloodline harvesting system.
This idea of manipulation is absolutely central to another key concept from the source, tribal distortion. This is the term it came up with for the theory that ancient family lines and even the words we use to describe them were deliberately corrupted as a way to control people. To try and illustrate this point, the document gives a really specific linguistic example. It argues that the name for the tribe of Judah was intentionally altered to Jewish and then linked to Judas, which, in its view, basically taints a sacred bloodline with the idea of betrayal.
The document then takes this theory even further, with a pretty controversial historical claim. It suggests that a so-called 13th tribe, the Khazars, was artificially inserted into the historical ledger. According to the source, this wasn't an accident. It was a strategic move made through powerful channels to distort the original bloodlines even more.
Okay, so after laying out this whole revised history, the document pivots to the present day. This next section reframes our contemporary reality as a kind of engineered theater.
You know, this quote really gets to the heart of the argument. The source is suggesting that modern social movements, even the ones that look like positive awakenings, aren't what they seem. It frames them as ritual misdirection, basically choreographed events designed to manage public attention and distract from, as it says, deeper corridors of control.
And then the document pulls in an existing conspiracy theory to back up its claims. It brings up Operation Bluebeam, a concept that was first talked about by Serge Monist way back in the 90s. The theory describes a secret project that would use advanced tech to stage a fake, global religious event.
So the source breaks this protocol down into 4 stages. First, you simulate a massive religious event. Second, this would supposedly be done using holographic projections. Third, they'd employ voice-to-skull tech to beam divine messages directly into people's heads. And the fourth and final goal? To collapse all existing religions and replace them with a single, new belief system.
From the present, the document shifts its focus to the future. And this is where it reinterprets religious prophecy, not as some spiritual prediction, but as a literal blueprint for modern high-tech war.
The author starts with a line from scripture that I'm sure most of us have heard before. It's very familiar imagery. But the document takes this ancient phrase and gives it a startlingly modern and very militaristic spin.
So here, the document argues this isn't a metaphor at all. It claims falling stars is a literal description of modern weaponry. We're talking missiles, orbital weapons platform, hypersonic warheads, and even the collapse of entire satellite networks.
And all of this leads to a pretty chilling conclusion within the document's logic. It suggests that a future World War III won't just be about geopolitics. It will actually be a piece of prophetic theater, a global conflict staged on purpose to fulfill ancient prophecies, with the whole thing sealed, as it puts it, in broadcast fire for the whole world to watch.
This brings us to the final and maybe the most urgent section of the whole text. The author introduces this concept they call the countdown protocol, and they frame it as something that is active and happening right now.
To explain this, the document once again takes a well-known religious concept, the rapture, and gives it a hard sci-fi twist. On one side, you have the traditional view of a physical salvation event, but the source describes something very different. It says the rapture isn't a physical lifting, but a frequency-based scanning that's looking for individuals who are sealed by a specific covenant, not just by what church they go to.
So the document concludes with its version of a call to action. And it's interesting because it argues the goal isn't to convert big crowds, it's to ignite their archive in certain people, which is a metaphor for activating the dormant knowledge and then compressing that truth so it can be easily absorbed.
And this is the author's final statement, which just perfectly summarizes the document's entire worldview. It draws a very clear line in the sand, arguing that you shouldn't see this as just another conspiracy theory, but as a codex, and that it's not paranoia, it's the unfolding of prophecy.
And that's the framework this document presents, a complete, self-contained system that reinterprets our entire reality. It leaves you, the reader, with that final, challenging question to ponder.